Hey,
Haribo,
Haribo,
how
Jai
you
Sri Ram.
doing?
Good, how are you?
Jai Sri Ram. Yeah, I'm pretty good actually.
Yeah?
I've had a interesting full-on day out here
Oh,
in
yeah.
Bali, celebrating Hanuman Jayanti digitally by releasing some music and a music
Beautiful.
video, and just making the best of things as much as we can out here.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so weird to think that you've come to the end of your day and I'm just kind of almost starting mine. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
know, right?
it's crazy. But still, it's so beautiful that even though the time difference, you've probably had a whole day full of glorifying Hanuman and thinking about
Hmm.
Hanuman and
Hmm.
trying to serve through your music, etc.
Hmm.
And I'm still yet to get there. So maybe this will be a good inspiration for those of us on this side of the world where we're still just about to start, to get any inspiration, any thoughts that you have
Yeah.
on celebrating this beautiful auspicious day. For those of you that are tuning in, by the way, do let us know where you're tuning in from. And for your
Hmm.
interest, today is a very, very auspicious day in the calendar of the Bhakti yogis. Today is the day where it's understood that Hanuman, this amazing person from the Vedic scriptures, and well, we'll speak more about him in a bit, but he's
Hmm.
said to have appeared on this day thousands of years ago. So we're celebrating that
Hmm.
anniversary. That celebration is happening today across the world, across India and Eastern cultures, etc.
Mm.
But I wanted to see, just to see what Pavanji's thoughts are on celebrating this beautiful day, and also just a little background about him for those of you that are watching and don't know his amazing glories,
Yeah,
his amazing projects that he's serving in. He's been
yeah,
sharing
projects.
kirtan across the world. The Hanuman Project is, of
Hmm.
course, his baby, his serving project, and it's
Hmm.
grown and shared to so many different beautiful countries through retreats,
Hmm.
seminars, kirtans, concerts, so many wonderful offerings. And we're really blessed to have you here, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for reaching out and connecting. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be of service. And then actually, just an hour ago when you messaged me, I was a bit like, "Oh, crumbs! I'm gonna have to speak about something now." And yeah, there's been, and maybe you found this as well. There's, as someone who also see, engages himself in a lot of Seva and organizing a lot of programs and traveling around. Maybe you can relate to this, but when this whole global stay home movement happened, there was a part of me that felt a little bit, um, I don't want to, like, relieved is maybe not the right word, but all of a sudden there was like a certain pressure of like what's going
Uh,
on with this program, what's going on with this festival,
totally.
this retreat, these emails, and all of a sudden a lot of that could just rest
Right.
and I could just take a breath. And I think, what do they say about music? Music sometimes is all about the pauses. So
Mm,
I'm also, what I'm noticing now is that I'm feeling inspired again to start re-engaging um, with the world, with not never really stop engaging with bhakti, but start re-engaging with
beautiful.
a more salient savor, one could say. um,
Yeah.
and so it's nice to have that impetus, particularly in terms of Hanuman Janti, in terms of a impetus that I want to contribute to something to the world at this point. What could that look like? What could I put together? What could I do? So, and then after having that pause, a nice little bit of perhaps re-inspiration and a bit of deeper reflection, and perhaps some more
Yeah.
potency even. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that it's so valuable to take that stock, take time out, and usually because the lives that we live, it's a case that we're always finishing one kirtan event and on to the next one. We're already kind of
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it even while you're at the event. How am I going to be able to
Mm-hmm.
share this with more people, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost been a blessing, you're right, to just reinvigorate the passion for kirtan for myself anyway, just to
Yeah.
take this time out
Mm-hmm.
to realize why I actually love it in the first place. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you're probably in the same boat.
Yeah. I do feel like that as well, and it's nice to be able to now when I sing, um, it's because I'm really just doing it for me, at home.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's been occasions when we're touring around and doing, 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, sometimes events in a week. Sometimes when it
Wow.
really gets full on,
Yeah.
um, my body starts falling apart, and I'm literally like, I can only sing and do something when it's offering time, and so I have to get into this sort of like battle mode almost, like to do that. So it's been actually
Yeah.
a real. And then there's also, you know, the sort of dangers, I guess, not dangers, maybe not the right word, but of around that of then does it become a show? You know, does it become this glorified procession of like egotistical mantra singing roadshow?
Yeah, right.
Which can easily happen. So I think that's been nice actually to be like, oh, you know what? It happened about a week ago, a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and I just picked up a guitar. That's the only instrument where I have guitar and cartel. That's the instrument I happen to have with me here. Just in a way that maybe I hadn't done for like 5 or 6 years in some ways.
Wow.
Just to be like, I'm just going to play just because I feel like it for me, you know, sat on my bed like a teenager or something.
Beautiful.
You know, and, you know, and I guess in some sort of a segue there, that, you know, because I was reflecting a little bit when you said, oh, we're going to talk about the glories of Hanuman. I was like, oh, right, what am I going to say? And so I was reflecting on, you know, what are some of the values maybe of Hanuman that I cherish personally and have some sort of merit towards me. And I feel like one of the things I really like about him is it's like the certain nuance of his unwavering devotion. You know, so he never like has to give his love for Ram or his service for Ram a second thought. You know what I mean? He's not perturbed by anything. He's never swayed by anything, and he's just enjoying it. You know, he just loves Ram. It's of course there's duty, but there's not this sort of like obligation, you know, or like, oh, I really should do this, or I've like agreed to do this, so you know, I'm gonna get myself up to be of service. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is nothing that gives him more joy, you know, than to serve Ram, and that's where all his power comes from. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
So
I
true
feel
that.
like,
Yeah, most of us are, you know, when it comes to this Dasya Baba, this something that I was speaking to Govindas from LA, who I'm pretty sure you
I
know as
watched
well.
that. I
Yeah,
watched
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I was very
It was an
happy to see that.
epic conversation, and he was sharing this concept of Dasya Baba that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so many of us are feeling that in the world today, we're bombarded with this message of become the master of this, become, you know, master this, master that, then you'll be successful, or, you know, the subtle energies of pushing us to become lord and master of people, or trying to manipulate a situation, becoming masters of X, Y, Z. And so many of us get so kind of trapped in that, or so consumed in that mentality, that we forget that actually it's not in trying to get things, you know, that we find happiness, or it's not by trying to lord it over things that we get happiness. Rather, it's through service, it's through this Dasya Bhava. And so this beautiful point that you're sharing is so nice, that Hanuman never thinks twice about whether he should be in the service mood or not. It's just that is his wiring. And some people, and some people will say like, oh, but then how do you function in the world when you're just trying to become someone who's of service, an instrument of service? But I think that anyone, like, I think you could probably share some experiences in your life where you've been in this mood of service, and it just seems like everything comes together. Like the universe is almost like grace, God is completely empowering you, right?
For sure. And what I would also say to those people, who are like, well, how does that work? You know, how does that work in reality? And it's something for me that it's a dynamic, a dichotomy that still exists day in, day out as part of my Seva, as part of my life, you know. And and perhaps I get the sense that you might be someone who resonates with this also, in that, you know, on one hand, I get to spend an awful lot of time singing with people, chanting with people, playing with people, dancing with people, and it's great. However, it's a little bit like an iceberg, you know. There's like the tip that everyone sees, and then there's the rest of the iceberg, which is like the emails, the Facebook invites, the Instagram stories, all the stuff.
Yeah, right.
And the arranging to make sure there's a drummer there and there's a singer and all that, and I'm sure you know how all that goes.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get lost in that whole world. I get lost in this arranging, and that, I need to arrange this, and work for me looks like, it's almost this program that I'm running from growing up,
Yeah.
of like, actually for me work looks like going to my laptop, and I need to get on top of my emails, and I need to organize this, and I need to get back to that person about this event in the future, and that's my mind talking. But what I've actually experienced is when I fully let go of that and actually just joyously and fully play and sing and be, all these different opportunities and these different situations just kind of take care of themselves.
Definitely.
And I perceive that, and sometimes I can like ride that for a bit, and then maybe something happens, and then I need to get into this, and so it's a constant ebb and flow of life
For
that
sure.
I found with that. And so I guess I don't know what the wisdom from that is, or what I take from that, but I just try and remain humble, I guess, as best as possible, which is hard sometimes also when you're trying to like do all these things and make all these things happen. But that's what I also like about Hanuman as well. Like, maybe he's not, well, it's funny if we can think of, if you're talking about Govindas and Hanuman, and in Treta Yuga, I guess what a lot of people perhaps don't realize is that Hanuman, he's very, very closely associated with Sitaram, Lakshman in Treta Yuga, but actually he's still around today in Kali Yuga, and he was also had some really cool leelas with Krishna as well in Dwapara Yuga, in the following Yuga, and there I guess it's actually Krishna who sort of utilizes Hanuman, if you like, to help influence, say, persuade, or show the value of humility to some of the other Pandavas and those sorts of things. So I think, and it's that with that same thing, it's that unwavering devotion. You think of is it I forget the name now. Well, one would be Garuda, where Krishna dispatches Garuda to go and get Hanuman, and Hanuman throws him in the ocean, and then he comes out, but I'm your greatest singer, and he's like, well, why are you so wet? And he's like, well, this monkey just threw me in the water, and he's like, that's no ordinary monkey, that's Hanuman, and so, and it's the is it Sudarshan, the chakra. Yeah, then as Hanuman, as he's coming back from being fetched by Garuda, he's trying to enter the palace with Krishna, and Sudarshan is like, I don't think so, you're not going in here to see my Krishna. And Hanuman just doesn't even think about it, he's just like, just puts Sudarshana in his mouth and strides in, and he's like, oh yeah, I did encounter something, and then Sudarshana appears and is very kind of like humbled, and he's like, I don't understand what's going on. And so it goes to show, despite how many of our perceived perfect offerings, there's actually nothing more powerful than just like a fervent, genuine passion to serve.
Yeah, it's so true. Because you can, like you're speaking about, you can get caught up in the details of how an event will run, or how an offering is, who is involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the mood of actually being of service can get lost in that. It can become like you're just doing any old, like, we can speak in mutual terms because we share Kirtan together, that, you can get lost in all the details, that you forget the mood of service is the most important part of it, that we need to come to this point of understanding that I'm not in control. This is an offering, not for my sense gratification, not for me to enjoy, but for others to be uplifted, for others to be, to find their higher consciousness. And I think that a lot of the time, many of us can find that it's like you're saying, it's not a common thing where every moment of every single day you're feeling in the mood of service. But when the opportunity does present itself, like I was speaking to one of our guests on these conversations about how Baba Ramdas, he speaks about this beautiful quote that if you want to realize how elevated you are, then just spend time with your family. Why?
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're in that association, if you're, and most of us are, like, you know, either you're with your partner, or if you're alone, then you're associating with just your mind, or if you're with your family, living at home with family, then being in that close proximity with something so familiar, you realize how little advancement, how little achievement you've made towards tolerance, towards humility, towards, you know, these qualities. And so this mood of service, when it presents itself at home, like, you know, for example, if my parents are doing something, they're cooking, and there's washing up in the sink, either I see it as a chore, or I see it as an opportunity for seva. Or if my wife, for example, she needs help getting stuff out the car from shopping, I can either see that as a chore, or I can see that as an opportunity for seva, an opportunity for service. And I think that this mood of service is almost like an attitude of service, where you have to just look for the moments where in every single day, I can guarantee every single person is presented with a moment of service. But it's up to us whether we enter into the attitude or not.
Yeah, I feel that, and something that's I think you're really right there, and I feel something really specific to myself and maybe my offering and what I do my best to share with people is one of the biggest keys, if you like, to entering into more and more seva is actually finding what you enjoy.
Yeah.
And you know, we again, so many people, I don't want to project on people, but you know, it's so easy to fall into a trap of like, you know, service should be something which is difficult. Service should be an obligation, you know what I mean? But you know, and we have, you know, obviously with Bhakti Yoga, we are connecting with the divine with relationship, you know, and that's it's a really beautiful thing to actually have a relationship with the divine, and you know, what kind of relationship do we want to have? You know what I mean? It's like, do we want to have a relationship of like obligation, shame, you know, where's that on the spectrum? Or do we want to have a relationship of just like, I love you, you know, and I'm not even, and that's why, again, coming back to Hanuman, that's why he really exemplifies, you know, seva in that way. And I think this is, for me, where this kind of real nuanced thing of what surrender is that as try as we might, we can't grit our way to that point. You know what I mean? If we're like, oh, I didn't do that many rounds today, or I saw this and I didn't do it, and I didn't want to feel to do it. It's like, you're not, and we beat ourselves up, and we think that like, oh, well, that's good, I'm chastising myself, I'll do better next time. But actually, that's part of that same trap, if you like. And so that's why it's really important to find out, you know, what your kirtan is. This is what a lot of time I say to people. You know, as far as I'm aware, and again, and I'm no great scholar of these things. In some ways, I really try my best not to get too scholarly. But I'm aware. I believe there's 64 sort of officially recognized arts of kirtan.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I could be. I'm sure there's probably, especially on your channel, some very learned, esteemed.
Who knows? If anyone knows, please do let us know.
Knows, yeah, let us know. But as far as I'm aware, there's 64 arts of kirtan. You know, of course, and we have like kirtan itself. It's like the crown jewel. You know, but in terms of like singing, dancing, painting. You know, you know, all these different and of course, from what I would imagine, particularly in this day and age, within those 64 arts, pretty much anything which sets your heart on fire is going to be somehow encapsulated in there.
Yeah.
And so it's all our, you know, duty, if you like, to allow ourselves to find that, you know, to allow ourselves to find and embrace that thing which you know, really sets our soul on fire. You know what I mean? Yeah,
because you're right. Nowadays, when you hear kirtan, you think drums, cymbals, harmonium, guitar, saxophone, and dancing and singing. But kirtan actually comes from the word kirt, which means to glorify. So what is it that you're glorifying? You're glorifying grace, you're glorifying divinity. And how can you do that? It's not just with instruments and with your voice, but it could be reading about divinity, reading about God, reading about Krishna, Ram, Hanuman. Kirtan can mean also service in that mood also. So it's a huge word. This kirtan is like an umbrella almost, and under which there's so many different offerings in which you can have. And like you're saying, find your kirtan.
Yeah, definitely. And I believe particularly in Britain, I believe it was said that Srila Prabhupada said that the British in particular were particularly well placed for theatre. And for plays and for drama, which also can be kirtan. In fact, to be, and I know in it's not quite so much a common form of kirtan now, but particularly over in Kolkata, we have Leela Kirtan, where actually it's been playing all those ways, and so there's all sorts that can be done.
All sorts.
So for me, I'm really much trying to invoke maybe some of that courage, and that's really what the Hanuman Project of like what I do, I guess, or one of the things that I do has been all about, and it's been kind of one of those things that's kind of been understood back to front. But it's about hopefully inspiring others to like have an understanding. Like, it's not going to make sense. It's going to be fun. There's maybe some stories and ideas that you might have to let go of in order to be able to embrace your seva and to embrace your dharma, and that's okay. And sometimes it's hard. And so again, this is why Hanuman is such a great ally, because he's this really like loving, warm energy. Like when you're like, I don't do this.
I think it's so easy to connect with that, because when we speak about Vedic culture, then a lot of it can seem quite lofty. That some of the characters, some of the personalities that are mentioned in the Vedic tradition, it can be difficult for many people who aren't accustomed to that culture to really understand what's really going on, or the internal moods of that person, and et cetera, et cetera. But that's where Hanuman has been so accessible, because I think all of us can enter into this mood of finding our service, finding our attitude of gratitude, finding our moments of grace by service. And so that's why it's so beautiful that he's so accessible now in modern culture. Like if you speak to anyone in the yoga scene, anyone in the kirtan scene, Hanuman is almost like the flag bearer of the scene.
Very much so. Very much so. I don't know if you've spent much time in the States, but there they have they even have a Hanuman Yoga Festival in Colorado.
Oh really?
Yeah, and you're obviously talking to dear Govindas, and I don't know if you've been to you must come to the Bhakti Yoga Shala if you've not been yet. Once Garuda is has dried off, is able to fly around again. And there, the Bhakti Yoga Shala there is very much a sort of like Neem Kroli Baba's or Hanuman's home out on the west coast of the States. And I guess he's also a bit of a yogi as well, right? He's doing the splits and the Hanuman asana. That's the common thing people ask me. They're like, oh, so can you do the Hanuman asana?
We're trying.
Well, to be honest, I'm not even trying.
Exactly. I think I'd be murdered if I didn't ask you to share some songs, share a kirtan with us. I don't know if you've got an instrument nearby or something.
I do. I have a guitar.
Oh, beautiful.
That's all I have. I wanted to bring a harmonium.
Guitar will work fantastic as well.
I have what I have. Is it time for that now?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. I think that everyone would be really keen to hear you chant, and we can all chant with you from all over the world.
I'm just going to take my headphones off for a sec.
No problem.
Okay, so what? Okay, I just as it was time to begin this call, being here in Bali, which is also quite an auspicious place to be for Hanuman Jayanti. Don't know if you've been to Bali. Have you been here?
No, I've never been.
Yeah, it's a really vibrant and amazingly well preserved spiritual culture here, actually, a traditional culture, and within sort of the archipelago of Indonesia, which is predominantly Muslim, it's kind of sort of this solitary Hindu island here, and where there's a very very it seemed to be there's more of a fondness here for Ram Leela
Wow.
and Hanuman in particular, and Vishnu, and there's some so it's definitely a place where his
You're in the
spirit.
best place then.
Yeah. So, but as soon as the call was about to start, there was a great big rainstorm, and it
Wow.
was a rainstorm that it was really loud. And then I'm after already being slightly worried about what am I going to say, and do I have anything impelling to say, and have I got like crumbs in my beard or something? And looking around for the headphones, but now the rain has acquiesced, and we may sing.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram. So this is a song. It's actually a bit of a song. So I guess we can, maybe I can even use this as a little bit of an analogy and metaphor for people. So, I started doing Kirtan about 5 or 6 years ago, and I first was introduced to it in an ashram in Guatemala, and
Wow.
it was harmonium and drum. And I liked that very much, and I liked doing that. And then sometimes I would have a guitar and I would play things like that, and I'd do things. And then I started getting invitations sometimes to do different types of performances or offerings and things. And particularly in America, one of the great things about America is they love bands and they love live music. So all of a sudden, it was like on a stage, and there was like microphones and speakers and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, I better play my guitar, because that seems to be like what's appropriate here. And sometimes I'd written these songs I like to play, and that's what felt authentic, but it didn't necessarily fit the mold of like what Kirtan was supposed to be, or different things. And it used to be something that used to hold me back a lot, at least internally, where I was like, I don't really fit in, I don't really know what this is. And it's again one of those same things. The more that I let go of thinking that I'm not as good as someone else, or I'm not doing things right or properly, the more grace flows. And so my own journey with this practice has been like surrendering more and more to that. So this is a song which has some English lyrics in it, and it has Hanuman's Bij mantra, and also we'll have a bit of a Kirtan call and response towards the end as well. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Bhajalo Ji Hanuman. And in this context, Bhajalo is to remember. You are the breath, son of the wind. You are the grace that lets me sing. You are, you are, you are, you are. And you are the strength that lives in me. You are the courage that set me free. You are, you are, you are, you are. And you are the temple, you are the beads, you are the farmer sowing the seeds. You are, you are, you are, you are. And you're serving the heavens, digging the land. You are the kindness in my hands. You are, you are, you are, you are. Molom Hanumataya Namah. Hanumataya Namah. Molom Hanumataya Namah.
We are the tales. We are the infants lifting the veils. We are. We are. We are. We are. And we are the shadows. We are the light. We are the candles. We burn in the night. We are. We are. We are. We are. And we are the starlight. We are the dust. We are our saviors. And believe we must. We are. We are. We are. We are. And we are the children. We are divine. This is the moment, and now is the time. We are. We are. We are. We are. Sri Ram Jai Ram Bajaloji Hanuman 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 Ramana Chandra Sitaram Ki
Jai.
Sutra Hanuman Ki
Jai. Wow, thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Yeah, pleasure. Yeah, it's
Wow.
that one's a bit Englishy, a bit songy. Sometimes we like to sort of rage the harmonium and the Radanga a bit more. But to
No,
be
it's
honest,
nice.
personally,
It's a beautiful offering. It's a beautiful
yeah.
offering,
And
and I
actually,
think,
that offering we released today, actually, we had a
oh,
bit of a insight like 2 weeks ago. Just the sentiment of that prayer, that offering was like this sort of feel everything that needs to be feel. Like we arrived at a situation for a reason, and let's honor that while we're there. And it's time to move forward with good steps, with love and with potency. It's not time to
wow.
like dilly-dally around. You know what I mean? Sooner or later, it's going to be time to lace up those boots and go out again. And you know, carpe diem. And it's it's time for those, you know, singers to sing, the leaders to lead, and the dancers to dance, and to really do something. So I felt called to kind of put that out. So yeah, if people are interested in checking that out, they can go to our YouTube
100%.
channel on Spotify, and there's a nice version of that. Which just
Hanuman Project on Spotify. That's what they search up.
Yeah, Hanuman Project on Spotify and iTunes and YouTube and all that stuff.
Beautiful. I wanted to ask you actually about that song because the lyrics are just so good. You wrote them yourself, and I'm
I
sure.
wrote those lyrics.
Beautiful,
Yeah, I wrote
beautiful.
them. I'm just going to put my headphones back in because the heavens have
I've
opened
opened.
again. Yeah, I wrote those lyrics about 3 years ago in Peru,
Wow.
and yeah, it's just no, I wrote them in Guatemala. Sorry, but then I went to Peru just after, and it was one of the first sort of songs like that I wrote. Actually, around a point of before I didn't really have any English in my offerings or things like that,
but I was being really encouraged and inspired at the time to just be me, you know, to really just be me and do my expression. And you know, on one hand, I kind of wrote it, I think, literally in like 30 minutes, 35, 40 minutes, just ding, 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 done. But actually, in order for that 40 minutes of grace, there was perhaps a month or so of like cultivation of that creativity and creating that space in order for that flow.
Yeah. In that sense, this is a really beautiful time for creators, for those who are songwriters, creative types, because it's a time where you're not feeling the FOMO of being, you know, the fear of missing out from being X, Y, Z here, traveling to this country, being at that place, doing this promotion, this marketing thing. This is a great time for any creative mind to just sit and to just start brainstorming and start flowing with what's happening in the mind without any pressure, without any stress. So it is a really beautiful time in that respect.
It's really good for that, just to have that opportunity to not have to think so much about what's to be done. And again, that's one of the things I love about Kirtan, and I love about this culture of bhakti. Like, we don't actually need to understand it in order for it to function. And the more we can surrender to that, you know what I mean, the better, the more everything is taken care of. You know, and that's something I say that maybe so I can remember that as well. Because ultimately, you know, Krishna's the best at arranging everything. So
for sure.
Just
surrender. Just let it go.
Yeah.
Let everything happen in its time.
Exactly.
I wanted to see, before we kind of go, I'm just going to scroll through to see if there's any comments, questions. But if you do have any comments or questions, guys, please do send them over so we can ask Pavani Ji before we go. But I wanted to see if you had any thoughts on tips for our time. So any practical things that any practical things that you're currently you're inspired by, that you feel that other people would really benefit from, any thoughts, any reflections, etc.
I guess on a personal level, what has been most alive for me recently is, you know, if I'm honest, there's been sometimes a bit of an oscillation of like just feeling this whole collective sorrow, if you like, sometimes, and sometimes just wanting to be in bed and being like and feel everything and allowing myself to do that when I need to do that, and also then when it is time to then galvanize myself and to be strong and to really you know, build up my internal strength and my internal potency around what's going to happen as we move through this situation, you know? Because the world is not going to be the same, you know, as the one we left, you know. And again, if we're thinking about like Hanuman and maybe in the Ramayana here, you know, on one hand, you know, we can see Ravan and Krishna as, you know, buddies and cohorts, and Ravan is playing a role. And at the same time, you know, there is a war going on. Same in the Bhagavad Gita, you know what I mean? And this can be analogous to the own internal war in our hearts. And, you know, there's going to be all sorts of competing needs, desires, opinions on how we should behave, on what culture is going to look like, and how we gather, and how we be together, and how we honor each other moving through this. And so for me, what's been most alive in me recently is like, and again in the spirit of Hanuman, like, how can I be really strong in my love and strong in my connection and strong in what's important to me, and also be kind of soft with that as well, in that I'm you know, honoring where we got to at this point, but how, you know, how can I be in my power and also in my sovereignty, but also be receptive and loving and in community. Beautiful. So I guess that's what's been most alive for me recently. I don't know if that's really a tip for people.
It's an attitude to kind of enter into as well. I think it's beautiful to share that. Thank you. Thank you.
And I think, and just the main tip is that, is just let go of like the need to, you know, some people maybe they really like routine and like to do things at a certain time. For me, I guess on a personal level, I kind of left living in England about 5 or 6 years ago, and I sort of hold a belief that one of the reasons why this happened was creating space for me to empathize and to feel a little bit more, and to be maybe a little bit more vulnerable sometimes, and to
Wow.
be witnessed being a bit more emotional or let things go. You know, as I'm sure we are aware, many of us in England, there's a certain, you know, on one hand it can be very beautiful, this kind of stiff upper lip, you know what I mean, and you know, don't worry about it, I'll put the kettle on, we'll sort it out, you know.
Yeah.
And there's something, and I often say to people, there's a really beautiful bother in that, you know what I mean. I like to even think of like the Beatles in that mood sometimes, you know, they're like, you have to admit it's getting better, it's getting better all the time. So there's something really marvelous about that. And at the same time, one of the things that has really been impressed upon me, and I found a lot of value in some of my travels, particularly over in the Americas, is the importance of allowing oneself to feel everything that needs to be felt. You know? And until we've really, you know, honored, you know, the emotions that we need to feel, we're not going to be able to move forward with any kind of new vision or any new added capacity or in a better way. So that would maybe be my advice to people. It's like, if you're feeling down, you know, or if you're feeling a lot of emotion, it's okay, and it's good to feel it. And true art is the true artist is the ability to channel that, you know, into something, you know. And again, this is why Kirtan is such a blessing, in that somehow it purifies that. You know, we can offer everything which is alive in us that doesn't make sense, and we can just offer it up, and somehow it is transformed. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I hope that was useful for everyone that's watching. It was definitely useful for me to just enter into that mood of what you were speaking about. And thank you for taking out this time to be with us.
Pleasure.
Please kindly join me, all of you, by folding your hands and praying for our dear Pavani Ji, that he may be safe, happy, healthy, of course, but more than that, he can continue in his offering to share with many hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people across the world in his beautiful offering of Kirtan, of Bhakti, and that we may also one day be able to serve in such a way where we can affect change in many hearts. And if not many hearts, then at least one heart, our own. So thank you so much, Pavani Ji, for your kind time, for your grace by being with us. And hopefully we can do this again sometime. Always.
Yeah,
always.
I would love that. And thank you so much for having me. And also, I'd just like to extend that gratitude and thanks and reverence towards yourself. You know, I notice you as someone who puts an awful lot of beautiful energy and enthusiasm into creating spaces for people to come together. And, you know, particularly we talked about leaders today, but in this era of Kali Yuga, there's nothing that is more precious than to come together to sing and dance and celebrate and glorify together. And thank you for holding that down in the way you
We're
did.
brothers in service. We do it together.
Exactly. And it's like Sangha is so important. It's called Sankirtan, you know, Sangha Kirtan. And again, I've got a few other brothers and sisters who do a lot of Kirtan and arrange a lot of events. We don't always get to see each other, but when we do, it's like all of a sudden we've got that Sangha, because it's like, you know what you go through to do this.
Yeah.
And there's something that magical that clicks into place. So thank you for that.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. For all of you that are out there, please do follow out the Hanuman Project. And also, Pavani Ji's got his own page there. What's the handle on your page?
I think that's Hanuman Pavani Ji. It used to be the Hanuman Project page.
Cool.
None of it
follow
makes
that.
sense.
Whatever,
None of it makes sense.
Whatever you want to connect to, but I'll put the handle for Hanuman Project in there. And I'm sure he's going to be putting some content on today.
Yeah, there's content up. If you go, there's a link tree, there's a button on the Instagram pages that links through to like the latest content things.
Wonderful.
And Facebook and all the bits and bobs.
Fantastic. Yeah, please do keep connected with Pavani Ji. And of course, if you guys are interested, then we have another chat today at 6 o'clock happening with a good friend of mine from New York City, Zoe Buckman, who is a avid Bhakti yogi now. And she's had a beautiful journey from living in the UK, in London, to getting married and living out in the States, and then somehow finding her journey through Bhakti Yoga. And it's going to be a fantastic conversation, I can say without doubt, as this was, of course. But please do keep connected. And then later on at 7 o'clock, we have Kirtan London sharing Kirtan on their page, and I'll be doing Kirtan on there. So lots of stuff to get involved with. May you all be blessed. May you all have a wonderful day glorifying Hanuman. And look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Haribol.
Haribol. Thank you very much.